Okay, so Council 4 is all about pressure. If we talk about the battery, the positive end of the battery has the highest pressure. The negative end of the battery has the lowest pressure. And as long as there's a pressure difference from high to low, that difference is what pushes the charges through. And as long as the charges are moving, you have a current. Okay. So in your lab, when it asks you where does the charge come from, it comes from the high pressure, and then it moves toward or to the low pressure, or also from positive to negative. Okay. And then as long as you have that pressure difference, that's what's pushing the charges through the circuit. And that means that you have a flow rate or a current. So flow rate and current mean the same thing. So as long as the charges move, there's current. And if that's true, then your bulbs are going to light. The next thing that's listed in your lab is the colors. So red is going to be the highest pressure. And then we're going to have orange. And orange is still a high pressure, but it's not the highest. And then we're going to have yellow, and that's considered to be normal pressure. So if you just pick up a wire and it's not hooked up to anything, just a wire that's sitting on the table, that's considered to have normal pressure. It's not high or low. And then next we have green, which would be considered a low pressure. And finally blue, and that's the lowest possible pressure. And the more of a pressure difference, so the greater that change in P, the more the flow rate's going to be. So it's going to push it through faster and you would get brighter bulbs. So I'll just put a note to the side. A greater change in pressure means more current or more flow rate. So it's pushing the charges through faster, and that means a brighter bulb. So relating pressure differences to current and flow rate and bulb brightness, you need a pressure difference to have a current or a flow rate, and the greater that difference, the more there is and the brighter the bulb. Okay. So I just summarized like 3 pages for you. So we're going to do color coding the wires for charging and discharging the capacitor. Okay. So we'll do charging first. And when you charge a capacitor, does that have batteries or no batteries?
No. Batteries.
With batteries, okay. And what do you notice about the light bulbs when you charge the capacitor? Okay, so they're bright, and then what happens?
They'll go away.
Yeah, so they're going to fade and then go away, and they'll go out. So what we're going to do is look at those stages of the brightness of the bulbs when we charge our capacitor. So before we actually hook up the battery, I'll just say before connecting, okay. And we'll draw light bulbs in here so that we can reference if they light or not. Okay. So I haven't hooked up a battery, so I just picked up a wire. What color did I say if you just pick something up and it's normal? So that's yellow. So right now, before we actually hook it up to anything, all of those wires are considered to have normal pressure. They're not high or low, just kind of neutral, and that's normal. Next, we're going to connect the battery and start the charging. So that means I'm going to have the battery over here. And then I've got my bulb and the capacitor. Okay. So what color goes with the positive end of the battery? Good, red. Okay. So the positive end of the battery always has the highest pressure, and that's going to be a red wire. Okay. What about the negative end? Blue. So the negative end of the battery has the lowest possible pressure, so we would color code that wire blue. It's not actually going to pick up a blue wire. We just say that it's called blue to let us know it has low pressure. And then the ones that are connected to the capacitor, they haven't had time to do anything yet. So this was just the instant that we connect it to the battery. Nothing's had a chance to move yet. So they're still yellow. We haven't done anything to them.
Is that orange or yellow?
It's yellow. Sorry. Oh, yours looks different than mine. It is yellow. Okay. And then now we're going to continue the charging. So do you remember doing the round bulbs and the long bulbs? Okay. Which ones last longer? The long ones. So we're going to say we have long bulbs. That way we can tell, oh, they flashed really bright and then now they're slowly going to dim. Okay. So is this wire right here still connected to the positive end?
Yeah.
Yep. What color is it?
Red.
Red. And then what's the negative end? Blue. Okay. So now our currents had a chance to start flowing. And here, it's still a high pressure, but it's not the highest. So what color? Okay. So that's going to be orange. Can you tell a difference on your screen?
Yeah, no.
Okay. Sorry. Mine looks really bright yellow on the yellow ones. And then can you guess what this one's going to be?
Green.
Good. So it's a low pressure, but it's not the lowest possible yet. Okay. Okay. And then once the charging has completed, what did your bulbs look like when it finished charging? Yeah. So they're completely gone. They didn't light at all. So what happened was all of that high pressure from the positive end of the battery got sent all the way to the capacitor. Okay. Is there, what's in the middle of a capacitor? What's on the inside?
Discs.
There can be. What's in between them? Like you have two conductors and what's in the middle? Insulator. Good. So can charges keep going through that insulator?
No.
Nope. So once that high pressure got sent there, it stayed and it couldn't go any further. On the other side, we took away the pressure and made it the lowest possible. So that lowest part of the pressure from the battery, it's like it sucked away the pressure from that end of the capacitor as well. And in terms of the lighting, think about when you first hook up a capacitor. Okay, so nothing's connected yet, the bulbs don't light. And notice how there's the same color on both sides, so it's yellow on both sides of the bulb. Is there a pressure difference if it's the same color on both sides? No, so there's no pressure difference, so it's not going to light. Here, once it starts charging, that's when it flashes and it's really bright. So we have bright bulbs because there's a big change in pressure, okay, from red to yellow or yellow to blue. Okay. And then your bulbs start to dim. Okay. So there's still a pressure difference, but it's not as big. So we'll just say it's a smaller pressure difference. So from red to orange instead of red to yellow. Okay, so just a little bit. And then on the last one, it's red on both sides or blue on both sides. There's no pressure difference, so there's no lighting. What, Brendan?
Would number 2 be bright or very bright?
Just bright. Okay. Like out of what we're going to see, it's the brightest in charging the capacitor, but it's just plain bright. Okay. And I'll show you on the ranking. That'll be the last thing we do. I'll show you how to rank the brightness based on the color difference. Okay. So, and when we talk about the pressure difference, we're only looking at one light bulb at a time. So the wires that are connected to both bulbs, there's red on both sides, so there's no difference for that bulb, or there's blue on both sides, there's no difference for that bulb. Okay, so that's when they don't light anymore. And now we're going to do the discharging, and then you'll have 3 questions in the Google form that'll ask you about discharging as well. So we'll do those together. So step 1 of discharging, all we do, what do you do with the wires from the battery? Yeah, you're going to touch them together. So we're going to kind of break that down into steps. First, all we're going to do is disconnect from the battery, and we're not actually going to touch anything. So all we do is take the battery out.
So is everything stuck where it was?
Yep. Good. So everything is stuck the way it was when it was fully charged. So we have high, and then we have low. So we haven't actually done anything yet. All we do is disconnect the battery. And since we haven't touched anything together, then nothing is gonna change. So that's where we left off. Now we're gonna start discharging. And you're right, you touch the wires together. So the high pressure from that part of the capacitor and the low pressure, they haven't had a chance to change yet. However, this one does. What do you think is going to average out between red and blue?
Yellow.
Good, yellow. So on this one, you should have yellow.
Color blue.
Okay. Is there a pressure difference there? Yes. And the bulbs are pretty bright. So that's when they first flash on. Then we're going to continue the discharging. What's going to happen to the brightness of the bulbs?
They're gonna go away again.
Yep. So they're going to dim, right? So it's starting to go away, but they haven't completely gone out yet. Once the wire turns yellow and gets to normal, it stays there. Up here, I still have a high pressure, but it's not as high as it was. Okay. Kind of starting to see the pattern? Okay. Yep, and then green on the bottom.
You should do like the TV shows, like Dora the Explorer. You're like, what was that? We didn't hear you. We'll be like yelling, like,
Okay.
thank you.
I'm glad you're amused. So there's still a change in pressure, but it's not as much, and this is when our bulbs start to dim. And then when discharging stops, what color do you think it's going to be?
Yellow.
What was that? Okay. So it's reached normal pressure all the way around. There's no pressure difference whatsoever, and no bulbs are lighting. So in your lab, it's going to ask you the following questions on the Google form. Out of these 4 pictures, which one has the greatest pressure difference across a light bulb?
B.
That is correct. Okay.
Oh, I didn't know I didn't know it was these pictures. I was like, what are you
Yeah,
gonna
it's
pick
easy.
guys?
Okay.
Or which one is it?
It is this one.
No, that's the highest.
So this one is the greatest pressure difference. Okay. Then it's going to say, out of those 4 pictures, which one is the charge going through at the greatest flow rate?
This was
No, the same one. Right?
Same one. So the greatest pressure difference is also the greatest flow rate. I ran out of room, but it's also the greatest flow rate. Okay. And then in which of the 4 pictures do the bulbs start to dim? Yep. So down there. So there's still a pressure difference, but not as much. Okay. And then the last thing I'm going to do with you is ranking brightness of bulbs according to pressure difference. Okay. What? Number 3 is when they get dim. Yes, that's what we're going to do next. So I'm going to make up new colors. Okay. So we're going to think about the order: red, orange, yellow, green, blue. We don't need the IV. And then I'm going to make a little scale over to the side. This is the easiest way I've been able to figure out how to tell the brightness of the bulbs. So if we have a 0, that's going to represent not lit. A 1 would be dim. I'm trying to pick words that are the same as what your Castle test is going to be. A 2 is going to be moderate.
I thought you were confusing lit.
3 is bright, and 4 is very bright. Okay, so keep that in mind. So there's my bulb. On one side, I have a red wire,
Make a Pokeball.
and the other side, I have a blue wire. Yeah, so it's 4. Do you see where that comes from? So we start at red and go 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 4 differences in the color.
Boy.
So that one would be very bright.
Oh, I see now.
So if I did, just because the colors are easy here.
Make a Pokeball.
Oh,
Here we go. We did Pokeball.
red on both sides.
Not lit.
Oh.
Zero.
0, not lit.
Bless you.
Bless you.
Sober.
Yellow to blue. How many steps apart is that? So start at yellow.
2.
1, 2.
Moderately lit.
I get a little moderation.
I'd say the party's at about 2.
Oh, I can go backwards. Green to red.
Right.
So 1, 2, 3.
I don't know if I can handle the first thing.
I don't know. It's kind of rough here.
It's getting really complicated.
Yellow
How's the third one? What color is the third one?
to orange.
What?
That's a yellow. That's a yellow. That's a yellow. And that's an orange.
1. Jim.
Okay.
So close. It's better than L.
Hey.
Okay.
Hey.
Kind of see the pattern?
Yeah.
Okay.
Strong.
So I believe I've gone over everything that you'll see in the lab in the Google form.
You did.
So filling out the Google form is your lab grade. If you want to talk to each other, that's okay. If you want me to help you and you miss something, that's okay as well. But that's how I'm going to get your lab grade for lab 4 is that Google form.
I already pressed it.
Do I need to go back? Okay. So, okay.